rolling? We rolling, and we are back in the shop for another Mondays and Tuesdays episode. I'm not sure what number this is. Want to just give a big old shout out to everybody who's watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that madness. Yeah, this train ain't stopping. You know what I mean? Y'all probably been like, where the episodes? Where the episodes at? You know, we got them, and they coming your way. So don't even worry about it. You know, we in downtown Oakland. Everything's smooth. We got Kim Woozy here. What's up? How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming through. This rain is coming down heavy.
Yeah, first big rain. It's been a minute.
First big rain. Rain is coming down heavy over in the Lakai office too.
Yes.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about that? That's pretty.
I mean, I don't know. I was telling you that I worked at Osiris. That was my one of my first jobs out of school, and I think over the years, like, brands coming and going is part of the game. You know,
Word.
It's sad for sure, but also, I don't know, things ending allows for new beginnings.
New beginnings for sure.
I think there's always the nostalgia, like stuff that reminded us of when we were younger. But at the same time, like, it's destined, like everything's got to come to an end at some point. So
there should be somebody should start doing like business classes for skaters.
I know that would be helpful.
For real.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, that one broke my heart for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Like I was telling you, I got into skating like way later. So like the whole like craze when Lakai first hit,
Yeah.
and like Rob Welsh being on Lakai, like all of that, like I missed out for that. I got in it more so like Raven, Terche, like that era, Trunk Boys era, and I was able to get hooked up with some shoes from the homie Daniel Wheatley.
Nice.
And then that turned into my homie Steve, which was a trip because I went on my first skate trip I ever went on was with the homie Steve, and then later on, like, he's sending me shoes for Lakai and shit.
Yeah.
And that's always a trip how, like, you meet somebody,
Yeah.
like, in your skate career, quote unquote, and then later on, like, you guys are working together and shit. Yeah.
That's the thing with the industry too. It's like people I think when you're younger, you get kind of attached to the labels and the brands, but then at the end of the day, like, especially for those of us who are older, it's like all the roads end up crossing. People move companies, people move cities.
Yeah.
But the key is like the community's there, you know. And
Yeah, if you're really driven to be a part of the skate world, not just to like make money, but to like keep expressing yourself and bringing that to the new generation and just showing the kids what you know, like there's always some room for you for sure.
And if you just be yourself, like we're talking about this, you be yourself, like you can't go wrong with that. You just be a good person, like things will circle back, you know, in ways that you can't even imagine. So
when you were working for Osiris, were you around? Because didn't they like stop for a second and then come back?
Yeah, so I started in 2005, 2006 as an intern. I was in my last year of school down in San Diego, and it was post D3 boom. I think they were still kind of riding, you know, the success of that for sure.
Yeah.
And this was like before the big shoe brands were in the game. So it was pre-Nike, pre-Adidas, pre-New Balance, right? And everyone, there was still kind of the OG brands, you know, on top. And so I think, however, in that short kind of next 5-10 years with the economy and, you know, like things moving, skateboarding getting bigger, those brands came in and some of the brands, you know, like went up and down. But what ended up happening with Osiris is they ended up getting licensed out. So it was like the company, I think, kind of slowly
dissipated.
They shrunk down, and I left in 2009, but it was because the economy was, you know, where it was at, and
because that was right after the housing crisis in 2008.
Yes, it was like the recession. Yeah. So I graduated in 2006 from school, and then the next 3 years.
What difference do you see then and now when people are talking about the economy? Because like I was around at that time, but I wasn't doing nothing to where the economy was necessarily like. I was just out in the streets fucking around, you know what I mean? I wasn't paying attention to it. But you were going to college and leaving jobs because of that shit back then.
I feel like it's similar maybe in the sense that, like, I remember graduating school and a lot of people, you know, had jobs, and then everything kind of went downhill, and then people were struggling. But I do think in that era allowed for people to like start doing new creative things. Like actually in that time period when action sports and skateboarding was kind of on the down, like retail wasn't popping. That's when like music and nightlife popped off. So like, because I went to school for video production, so we started filming DJs and like women DJs. So we would follow them around. And I guess everyone was bummed because they didn't have a job, so they went to the club and partied, which doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense, you know? It's like, you gotta do it. You're like, what am I supposed to do?
Damn, that's tight.
And the DJ industry was kind of, you know, Serato came in, it was like, you know, have to
when
carry.
When Serato hit, it was lit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were around when that first dropped, when Serato
exactly.
First cracked off.
And like skateboarding and
or
snowboarding.
around in the DJ scene when the
so it was kind of like skateboarding, snowboarding, surfing was on this like upward trajectory. You had like the Red Bulls coming in, and then we were friends. We kind of made connections on the music side of things. So there was a few women DJs. Tina T, who was supported by Red Bull, she did a camp for kids. It was like Woodward basically.
Okay,
but it was a DJ camp for kids. So we went and shot so I went to school for video, so we shot video and photos of the camp, and it was like all the top DJs in Vegas and LA at the time.
Damn.
And then they were like, we need videos, we need photos. So then we started shooting their parties and helping them promote their parties. And it was kind of cool because it was like the way you kind of make your name as a DJ is similar to like being a skater or something like that. You kind of have to promote yourself. You have to have your like brand. And the more people you could bring to an event, the better, right? So for us, and we would like, me and my partner at the time, Johnny, my business partner, we both went to school for video, and we'd shoot photos and make videos of these DJs, you know, doing their thing. And we would kind of take the skate approach because he was a skater too. He skated in college.
Yeah.
We'd be like with the fisheye, like standing on the chair, like in the corner of the club,
just
like
getting creative with it, super creative with it.
Because all the other nightlife photographers were shooting the people at the time, like the club goers, and people would come up to us being like, "Hey, can you take a photo of me?" And we're like, "Nah, that's not really what we're here to do. We're here to like show the party."
And the majority of these photos are going off on Red Bull websites, and
it was like the DJ's own promotion.
Okay, so they can just use them and do whatever they want with them.
Yeah.
Use them for a flyer or something.
Exactly. And it was like, we would make it look dope, like a, you know, like a different angle, fisheye, you know, so it was definitely like a fun experiment and took us to some pretty cool places.
For sure.
But, and then women at the time too, it was like the Paris Hilton DJ era, so it was like the women who were true turntablists, like...
What's up, chilling. We just getting started on this episode, so you got time. Just chill. Yeah, thanks for the donuts. I see you. Yeah. What was like one of the most cracking parties though that you can remember like back then?
I mean, we ended up going out to Singapore for F1 with Tina T because she was a big, you know, Tina.
F1 is the racing thing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, the Formula One. So, and she was DJing like a Johnny Walker, like black tie, like Crazy Rich Asians party. This is like before that movie, way before. We walked up, we rolled up because we always had our skateboards and our camera bag. And we were just like, this is crazy, and so that was.
Anytime a skater is coming up on a big party like that, we're like, we're lit, baby.
Yeah. And we like she had a lot of different gigs, and we went out to like New York Fashion Week, and she was doing some stuff for like a salon, like a hair company. And I just remember we rolled up, we like would skate to the gig with our cameras just sweating, and like all the other photographers would be there was like paparazzi basically on the runway shows. They'd be looking at us like, who are these kids? Like, what are you guys doing here? And we're like, oh, we're here to shoot the show, you know? But those are some pretty good times. And then for women in that scene, in that era too, is similar to skateboarding, where like you kind of had this shift of like, you know, Serato came in and people could kind of like DJ even though they didn't have like an extensive history being like a turntablist. So it was cool to kind of rock with the women that had put in their time and like would do like, you know, DJ battles, and were, you know, just kind of like had the proper like history of like collecting records, carding records, and to promote them versus sort of like maybe the like more model types that were kind of just getting the gigs because of what they looked like.
Because it was like the craze, like women DJs,
yeah,
DJs,
exactly.
Like, yeah, go crazy. But you guys were getting like more in depth and like tapping in with some of the actual originators or people who they got the knowledge and kept pushing it through, and you guys are able to like. capture that.
Yep.
Do you have a lot of that stuff still, like footage?
Yeah, it's still so back in the day we were like Vimeo or YouTube. We went with Vimeo because it was just higher quality.
It seemed more lit back then.
But and then YouTube had the issues with music, so then a lot of it's archived on Vimeo, but it's locked in our account kind of thing. But maybe someday we'll
but all the photos too, right?
Yeah, the photos are all there.
It might be cool to do like a little exhibit,
little throwback. Yeah, I kept in touch with some. Yeah, exactly. I kept in touch with some of the homies, and one of them, DJ Lady Shaw, she still is DJing. They do a lot of the women, and I think the dudes too. As they get older, they do more corporate stuff. But
for sure.
She just had 2 kids in COVID, and she's like giving birth and then going to the club, and she always tells me her stories, and like they're amazing. Like it's just the craziest thing.
Woman power for sure.
Yeah, because that's like not a career you think about, like, oh, you're turning 40 and then you're a professional DJ,
but
like she's made her whole career.
Everybody needs to dance.
Exactly.
We ain't never gonna stop dancing, you feel me?
Exactly.
So that's more power to that, for sure,
especially in hard times.
Especially in hard times, like you said, when everything's all bad, motherfuckers just want to dance.
Exactly.
So you were already skating back when? Like when did you jump into it? Like who put you on?
In high school, I had a teacher that was a surfer, and he would have a longboard, and he would let us mess around in the parking lot. And this was like before there was no social media. There was like nothing. We had magazines, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to go up to the mountains every winter with my family. My parents would take us skiing, snowboarding.
And what part of is this in California or?
Yeah, up in Tahoe. I grew up here in the Bay.
Okay, bet.
I'm originally from Fremont, is where I live now. My parents, when they immigrated here, they first moved to Oakland.
Okay.
This was their first spot.
From where? Where'd they immigrate from?
From Taiwan, yeah.
Okay.
From Taipei, yeah. So,
damn, I got a homie Unan is in Taipei.
Yeah, Taipei is the spot for sure. Like
I want to go out there and do some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so my teacher had a longboard, and he would let us mess around. And then when I went to college, I would skate around to class. Same thing, out of kind of the need. I was like, I don't want to walk to class. Like, the campus was pretty big. I went to UC San Diego, and so it was like 20 minutes across campus. So if I had
UC Davis?
UC San Diego,
UC San Diego.
It's a pretty big campus. But so if I had a class that was kind of downhill, like I would always be on time to that class because I would skate, But if it was uphill, I was like, I'm not making it.
And you got a longboard at this time?
Yeah, I was cruising like on a longboard, and then went shorter. Mm-hmm. And then when I started working at Osiris, that was my first job, senior year of college. Like my internship was an internship turned into a job. I started being influenced, and I was like, damn, I really want to learn to like skate, And like some of the guys were pretty cool. They had like a few ramps in the back they'd pull out behind the warehouse, and I would just mess around.
Cool.
But there was like no other women beginners. I was like, I see people like Leticia, who is like 14 and super like child prodigy. And then it was like...
You see her out and skating in person?
Well, Osiris was sponsoring her at the time. So as a little Grom, she was like...
She was on Osiris?
On the flow originally, before Nike, and then...
Oh, yeah.
So my only reference was like really good skaters, and I was like, I don't think I could do that. So that was hard, But later moving here and then seeing more beginner, like adult women was helpful, because then... I was like, oh, okay, it's not.
What was your first crew when you first got here? Like, who was you going to skate curbs and shit with?
Well, I think when I was in the industry, I would roll with like Lizzie, Alicia. They were kind of like my little sisters.
Okay,
so I was more like TM vibes. That was actually one of my first rolls, and I would shoot photos of them
for
Osiris, and then after Osiris,
Lizzie was on Osiris too?
This was before. No, Alicia was on Osiris, and then there was Karen Jones and Annie Sullivan. There's kind of like OG vert skaters down in San Diego.
Yeah, because Alicia's a vert skater.
Yeah, exactly.
She
and then
rips.
I met Lizzie through Alicia.
Okay.
And then I started my own production company with Johnny, my buddy. And so we were shooting like, girl skating and snowboarding and surfing and stuff like that. And then we'd also did the DJs, because it's just like, we were just like, where the opportunities are. We did a few weddings. It was just like wherever the opportunities were.
Tight.
But it wasn't really until I moved back here and met the Skate Like a Girl crew here that I actually started really skating. Because when I was working, I was always shooting photos, or I'd be like driving them around, I'd be like the TM duties.
So you could like dick around on the board here and there,
but
like didn't get time to actually like...
Or we'd be at like X Games, and I'm like, this is not where I'm going to learn to skateboard, you know? Like, you're not even allowed to like be on the course.
Yeah, they definitely looked at me crazy. The one year I ever been to the X Games was I was on a trip with Raven, and we were in Texas, and that's where I met Nora and Lizzie. It was cool seeing them. Yeah, in Austin. Yep. And you know, like they got that racetrack.
Yes.
I bombed that thing. Well, the other homies did too, but like it was crazy that I did it. Other folks kind of like bailed out and shit. Like I caught the speed while I was at the end, and everybody from the course, I didn't realize, you know, is watching it.
Yeah. And so because they can see.
Because they can see, and they just are like tripping. When I like walked back over, like just like like minding my business, it was like that was sick, and I'm like, oh, y'all seen that shit? I was like tight. So then I skated the course, and even then, like people were kind of looking like, what is this dude doing on the course? I just dropped in and like tried to catch a couple revs here and there. But,
nice. Yeah. I mean, the courses are also massive too. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, but it was tight, but damn, man, that's what's up. Like, was there any like influence in the skating other than your teacher? Like, were after your teacher showed you, like, and then the board started getting smaller for you? Yeah. Was there like any professionals that you were looking at?
Yeah, for sure. Well,
before you even got into Osiris, like,
there was a magazine when I was growing up that was sold at like Barnes & Noble called SG Mag, and it was all girls, and it was surf, skate, and snow. Yeah. And like Vanessa was in it, obviously Alyssa, Mimi, Lindsay, Amy, like all like Leo back in the day. And that was like my first inspiration because again, we didn't have internet really, so it was like flipping through the magazines, like. And
Barnes and Nobles, I remember there was a point in time where, well, my mom used to take me, but then even after that, like passing the Barnes and Nobles, they'd be like, "Oh, let's go to the magazine section."
Yeah,
like,
we would just post up there.
Exactly.
We would just like literally because
they had the cafe and shit.
Exactly.
So you can get a
we would just get
something.
a stack of magazines, read them, and then put them back.
But
fun. The good ones I would buy, and so I had a subscription to SG, and then. When I moved to San Diego, I was like, oh, this is like the epicenter where it all happens. And then I ended up meeting all those girls, like Vanessa and Amy, seeing them at all the events. Yeah. And so they for sure were the inspiration, like from the beginning, because they were just like, that was a time where it like wasn't cool to be a girl skater. Word. Like people were laughed at, like they were just like people hated on them, you know, because it wasn't cool and it was like not marketable or whatever. Because even at Osiris, it was like we'd be doing like a catalog shoot. And they would be like, okay, put it out on Craigslist. And I was like, what? Like, for the guys, you're using the pros, the AMs, like the flow team. Like, why would you, like, that'd be weird if you were going to hire a model on the guy side. But on the girl side, they were, like, flowing some girls. And I was like, why don't you just use them? Yeah. And then they'd have to work through it. They'd be like, oh, well, she's not pretty enough. She's not this enough. And Bullshit. I'm also like, who cares? Like, when I grew up.
It's skating.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I had posters of like Cara Beth Burnside on my wall, not because she was pretty, but because she was like gnarly on both a skateboard and a snowboard. You know, I was like, if you're gonna and they would listen to me too, because I was like, I'm like your custom. Like I bought the shoes when I was in high school, so like, just try it. You know, like a model's only gonna get you so far, and so they started like being like, okay, cool, like
that's tight.
Do your thing, like, and that's how like I became kind of more on the marketing like TM side of things for Osiris. And it was kind of like it grew from there. So
yeah, and see this, I'm like, I always have this back and forth in my head about the big companies and shit like that. Because what you're telling me about Red Bull, which I've already known, because Red Bull's always had like breakdancing and DJ shit and all that. I know skateboarders can be a little more protective sometimes, or at least more haterish. Yep. Like, oh, we don't want these big companies in a thing. But then there's like folks like you who actually are doing rad shit and at the helm of the company's like maybe expense, but then you're actually like, no, but we need to do it like this. Yeah. And then those people get into position to then open it up. Yeah. But somebody on the outside looking in is like, man, fuck Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like always a give and a take, I feel, with that type of stuff. Same with like Nike. Like I just read something in the Lakai comments about Consolidated warned us about this and shit like that. But then it's like, I fuck with Grant Taylor though. Yeah. And I'm hyped that Grant. So I wonder, like, I guess that might be also not at the end of the day. It's like, should we all be going to the grocery store or should we all be growing our own food? Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like just that existential fucking crisis of a question always. But
it's a balance for sure. Because I mean, I think there's a lot of things we can and can't control. Obviously, we can control how we spend our money and like where we put our attention. But I do think, like, it's easy to look from the outside and be like, well, fuck these big companies. But then you have some great examples where it was like, they signed Leo Baker, and that was the first like legit contract Leo ever had. Vans wasn't doing that for Leo.
Word.
Like, and so it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like there's criticisms for sure, but also everyone's just kind of doing. It's the evolution of like where things are going.
Yes,
you know?
I think sometimes these big companies, whatever, they can be invasive in certain moments, but they also are just learning from what they like. You know what I mean? Like Nike got into skating through skaters. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Their whole like SB from the beginning was people who worked in the industry.
And I think sometimes when they might pick up the ball, they might pick up the ball where the companies that we love drop the ball.
Exactly. Like having an HR department, having a contract. Like sometimes you want to believe that you can just be like, yeah, we're homies, like handshake. But it's like, that's not going to pay someone's bills if you're trying to have a family. Like, you need some security.
And then, like, you see one of your favorite skaters leave your favorite company. Yeah. Now you're torn between thinking, oh, what they do to him, or no, he's ungrateful.
Yeah.
This company has put him on his whole life. Yeah. And then you kind of exclude all the hard work of that skater.
Yeah, exactly.
From being 10 years old and being like, can I do this? Or should I do this? Or this is fun? To then, like, putting out footage and stuff that like carries a whole generation of people towards continuing to skate. And now just because of a brand or a name or some shit like that, they're like, I don't fuck with that.
It's also just never that simple. Like it's not black and white. Simple, it's not one person's perspective. Because like I think a perspective that a lot of people don't think about, because me being on like the women's side and like supporting the girls from like when they were, you know, young and like no one knew who they were. It's like Nike and Adidas and a lot of these companies have been paying women athletes and hiring women at, you know, leadership roles for way longer than some of the skate brands have been around. So like one can argue like, okay, well, fuck the corporate brands. But I'm also like, all the girls at the time that I knew started getting real support that the core companies just weren't able to or willing to, or they didn't see it, they didn't get it. So it's kind of like there's a lot of perspectives involved, you know?
Yeah, and until you're sitting behind a desk, for whatever reason, as an intern or owner, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Even at that point, you still don't know what's going on because there's so many curveballs. But that's another level of understanding that the homies just won't get.
For sure.
And it's usually the homies, you know? Like, you might come from out of a meeting where you're like, oh, this is going to work and this is going to be great. And then the homies are just like living like homie life. Like, man, fuck that. You know? So it's... I look at it as not so much of a task, but like a duty, you know?
Yeah.
The more I can learn somewhere else, the more I can kind of shed some light and be like, look, it's a little bit more cleaner cut than you think, but the less check stops, the less check marks that you take off your, like, you know, like if you're not meeting certain requirements just for yourself, as somebody trying to put yourself out there or whatever, then it's going to be harder for you to get further, you know?
Yeah, and I think the key is to just like ask questions, have conversations with people because whatever, you know, the kids are saying, that's also valuable. If you're only behind a desk in the industry and you're not in tune with what's on the ground, what the kids are up to, what the skaters are up to, you're missing out. And same, if you're only in the streets or you're only like, you know, just, I think, participating and you're not asking questions or trying to learn from people who are in like, you know, got to the leadership making positions, leadership, you know, roles, then you're just going to be in your own little bubble. So I think it's like, it's always more complex, you know, than people think. And I think the key is to like get curious and like, you know, not assume you know everything because it could go either way, you know?
Luckily enough, like skateboarding has that weird messiness to where it's like, if you don't just take it all as like, oh, let me just jump in the comment section and talk shit, there's actually some valuable lessons in business if you care about that shit. That you can get just by like paying attention versus like
taking a side, like you don't never want to take a side.
And then just looking at other big conglomerate like sports or whatever, you know, it's kind of like you're so on the outside looking in, but with skaters, you know, everything's so more personal.
Yeah.
I think skateboarding, like there's the act of getting on the board and having fun, but then there's the act of shooting a photo, filming the shit, editing, putting the paint on the board, you know, to make a graphic, going on a trip, like all of that to me is skateboarding. And I feel like if you can understand that and like incorporate that into a sort of monetization type of deal just to pay for what you're doing, then like I think that's a good route to be. But then also if you just want to skate and enjoy the shit, that's cool too. But there is a lot of like haters just out there just ain't got shit to do, so they're just hating. But that's the comment section and everything.
Everything, yeah.
Martha Stewart got haters. You know what I mean? Like, everybody.
I mean, I think you're right though about skateboarding. There's a lot more roles people can play with like traditional sports like basketball, football. It's like there's not that many roles. Most people are just fans, like in the comments.
Yep,
know,
or
like,
you're doing this from a kid because your parents are like, you gotta do this. And then, that's.
But in skateboarding, it's like you said, you can be an artist, you can be a photographer, you can be a filmer. You know, there's a lot of different aspects. So it's like if you're in the comments angry, then just go participate. Like find a way. You don't have to be the best on your board. Like
that's kind of what I'm getting at too. I'm like anybody who's there hating, like, oh, they should do it like this, they should do it like that, like. Go get your friends.
Yeah, start
and do that
t-shirts.
Shit. You feel me? Because we'll buy it if it's tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's not as big of a barrier. Whereas like if you're a fan of the NBA and you're hating, like you can't just
start a basketball team.
Yeah, exactly. But anyone can print T-shirts. You know, like make some stickers.
Speaking of basketball, ain't you a hooper?
Yes, I try. I try my best.
Okay, so you didn't hoop in high school or nothing like that?
I did in high school, but only JV because then I played soccer. But,
okay. Yeah, so you got the Oakland roots.
Yeah. I'm on the community advisory board. They're
because I just seen Idris name dropping.
Yes,
I just seen he stays like right around the corner. Nice. I've seen him, and like we just been chopping it up, and he was just telling me like, yeah, I want to do a skate event like next year, like when we get over to the Coliseum and shit like that. I'm like, you ain't said nothing but a word.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll be tight. Yeah.
I appreciate Idris and Mike and that whole crew because like they, you know. The whole thing with the Roots and the Soul is that they're a purpose-driven sports team, like professional sports. And it's like a lot of people say that. A lot of the big teams have like give-backs and foundations. But I think what was different about them is that they are A, from here, and B, like they brought me in through K-Dub before the team.
Shout out K-Dub.
Yeah, speaking of people in the community,
shout out
K-Dub, the OG, like
for real, the
supporter
guru.
from day one.
Supporter. He's just always hyping the kids up and then hyping up other adults. Yeah,
he's just always elevating. Like before I even started doing anything, I met him, and I was kind of in the transition between doing Mafia TV, that was a production company, and then I was just kind of
TV. That sounds hella familiar.
It was like Girls Action Sports. Like,
I do remember that. It was kind of jarring because I remember seeing Mafia, but then it was like all the girls, and I was just like, all right, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I met him, and he was like, all right, like he was like, you got to do this, make it happen, like programs at Town Park, lessons. And I was like, what? Like, I don't even, like, this is before we did anything. So he kind of saw, I think, the potential in what we could do with Skate Like a Girl, the Bay chapter, before we even did it. And
when you say the Bay chapter, where did Skate Like a Girl start?
Yeah, so it started up in Washington, so near Seattle 20 years ago. So it's been mostly in Seattle for the past 20 years. And then there's a chapter in Portland. And then the Bay chapter is kind of the youngest, like newer chapter.
Did you start the Bay chapter?
I didn't. So
Were
when
you
I
already
moved back,
working with Skate Like a Girl before the Bay chapter?
Exactly.
Okay.
So what happened was when I had Mafia, which was a video production company and a website just showcasing, you know, girls, women, and action sports. I met.
This is exactly why I wanted to interview you.
Yeah.
There's just so much stuff
Get the
about
rundown,
like, just skateboarding in general, but then like the women's side of shit too, you know?
Yeah, I met Skate Like a Girl through Lisa, who runs Meow, because she was sponsoring Kristen and, you know, a bunch of, you know, different girls doing amazing things. But so I learned about Skate Like a Girl. I went to Wheels of Fortune. It was like WAF 6, and I was like,
that's a contest, right?
Yeah, it's I would say it started out as a contest, but now it's kind of like Unity Fest. It was like a community gathering, right?
Word.
But I went up there and I was like, there's no one shooting a single photo. I mean, there's people shooting photos, but no one was like truly documenting it. And I was like, all right, we got to show this. It was like the coolest, like it was really small back then too, but it was just like people just got to be themselves and there was no judgment, right? So I met Skate Like a Girl through that, and then I was still living in Southern California. I moved back home, and the Bay chapter at the time, it was like Kat Sai, who skates for there now, and a few other just like, you know, volunteers doing meetups, and it was super simple, like meetup to skate, mostly girls. There was also like, you know, supporters, dudes involved back then. And I just started skating with them, and Kat was like the first to be like, dude, all right, I'm going to teach you to drop in. I'm going to teach you this.
Oh, sick.
And she was like 17 at the time, you know?
That's tight.
I call her my youth mentor because she's been like, you know, she's like mature beyond her years.
So you were I love that. I love that aspect of it because those are the people I feel like, those are people I want to talk to a lot, especially on this talk show, but like the people that I connect with the most.
Yeah.
Because I didn't grow up skating the way that like some of my best friends are skating did. And like that's why I picked up a camera, because I was like, I ain't about to do that.
Yeah.
But I could take a photo of it, you know.
That's a similar path for me, because I didn't grow up like doing tricks or anything. I would just like cruise around.
Nah.
And I worked in the industry before I even really started like skating.
Yeah, I was doing some rap stuff and like getting pulled in on shows, and like homies like I learned to drop in, and I didn't even learn. I tore my shit up, like scraped my skin all over. When I got there, that was like a fuzzball, and we kind of like had to bogart ourselves on stage. And then after that, I like start dropping in, and like everyone's stopping what they're doing for me to try it. And that's when I started to realize like, oh, this is a real thing. I ain't gonna be able to just do this, and like I gotta learn how to do this. I'm like, oh fuck it, I'm already eating shit. And I'm doing it and just slamming, and just like people are like, oh, and I'm like, oh, whatever. And then there's like nails, like Kessler and the homie like built the ramp down in Texas, and there's like kind of nails sticking out, and just little cutty little things, and like my knee was all scraped up. And there's moments like going back to the hotel with a homie that I was out there, like, you know, and he's like, oh, and there's like Gucci and shit like that, and I'm like limping through the hotel, like bloody ass bandage on my knee, not even crying about it, just like, oh shit. He's like, look at you, bro. You like this skating shit so much. You're a grown ass man. Yeah. Just like berating me, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, all right, bro. Like, look at you. Like, you think you hella fancy. Yeah. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I'm actually kicking it with homies, and we having hella fun, you know? So, and then eventually I started learning how to drop in and skate and shit. But that was like way after I was in the world, so that's I can hella relate to that.
Well, I think everyone's gonna respect someone trying something new and then eating shit. Like, how can you not respect that? I feel like
and
as
getting
adults,
up and doing it again.
Yeah, as adults, like we go the opposite, where you stop trying new things and you're just slowly dying.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
it's
I ain't gonna do that no more.
That's not the way to live life. But I do think that more.
It's kind of like me and salads.
I do think that our community benefits when people who have other experiences in other cultures like come in, because you're bringing diversity, you're bringing different perspectives, whether it's music or sports or whatever.
Because let's face it, it's like, to the outside world looking in, it's like, not now, but through the 70s, it's a white boy sport, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bunch of white boys in the backyard who are surfer dudes, whatever.
Punk rock.
Yeah, but then if you look hard enough, you know that there is like some Marty Jimenez's and like Ray Barbies and like other names that I can't think of, or you know what I mean? Camden Scott, somebody out in San Francisco who you just wouldn't know unless you know. And so to see that culture of people who've been in there, maybe not the majority, to now it's like 2 times skater of the year, Tyshawn. You know what I mean? Aisha Ware and everything under that. You know what I mean? That's just the names, but like every neighborhood, like there's skate parks where you probably won't even see a white boy at the skate park. You know what I mean? So it is cool to be included without it being like this like banner of like, we need more of this type of person. It's just like, no, we learned it. Same with the girls, you know, and it's tight to have somebody on the front line like you who are like, why are you going to get my, like, you know, like you slowly help make the shift into being like, no, pay more attention to these women on your team. And not even like they're going to blow up one day. It's just like, they're here. Yeah. Fuck with it, you know? Like,
I appreciate that. Thank you. And a lot of it for me was because I grew up playing team sports like basketball and soccer and looking up to like the WNBA. And like, honestly, these bigger brands that were supporting them. So when I like got into the skate industry, I was like, why are we not like, you should be supporting. They're like, you know, I know people don't like to call them athletes, but I'm like, whatever, you're risking your body for your job. So whatever you want to call that.
You're sweating like an athlete.
Yeah, it's like whatever you want to call that.
Aisha Ware is Nyjah Houston is an athlete. That's those.
I mean, Leticia,
Olympic athlete. Yeah, Leticia
like
is an athlete.
She's working out every day. She's training her body. Like there's no way she'd be able to do the things that she did.
For sure.
But it's like if you're doing something hard with your body, like that's respectable, and regardless of the gender, like you can. That's inspiring.
For sure.
Like. This was my thing back in the day too. Growing up, like we had the magazines. We didn't have Instagram, thank God, but like I'd be looking at like beauty magazines with my friends. Like we're just teenagers, and I'm like, damn, like I don't look like that. Like I can't. I don't. There's no world where I'm gonna be like a blonde white girl, right? So, but it's like if you practice shooting hoops or working on kickflips, whatever, like you can get good at something.
It's true.
But there's only so much amount of plastic surgery you can do, right? So it's like, what are we gonna show young people? Like, work hard at something and get good, or like, just be sad that you don't look a certain way because we don't have a choice. Like, we're just born how we're born, you know? So.
Yeah, that's one thing I do I think that's what I resonate with, like Samaria or Nicole House or Nora, because they're like homies. You know what I mean? It's not like they are, I'm a woman, look at me go.
Yeah.
Obviously, they fucking promote themselves and who they are and what you know what I mean, what they represent. But I don't get that from them. You know what I mean? And it's the same with like Skate Like a Girl. Like, it's just like it caught me off guard because I'm like, damn, the girls that I look up to, I wish I could skate like them. So this is like, it's like a double entendre because it's like it almost kind of at first it's like skate like a girl, like you could do it like even if you're not as good as the boys type thing. But then like when you really pay attention to it, it's like there's 10-year-old girls spinning in circles doing 1080s and shit. Oh, what's the girl who skates for April?
Risa.
Risa, yeah.
Brazilian, yeah.
So good.
The little girls in Brazil and Japan are like next level. That was a crazy thing for me too, like seeing little Asian girls, because growing up, so I grew up in the Bay. Obviously, I did TV and magazines, right? So like most athletes or like people I saw that were like in positions of like, you know, notoriety were white generally. And so especially with skateboarding, like snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing.
Especially with snowboarding,
stemmed
for sure.
from stemmed from like basically like, you know, Orange County, or I would say like Southern California.
Yeah, people who had the means to do that shit.
Yeah,
and was close enough to it and had the means to do it. Like obviously a certain demographic of people are going to be living in the mountains.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So like the last thing I thought was like, oh yeah, like a little Asian girl that looks like me. But then I went out to Japan in 2012 with Lizzie and Alicia, and we met this whole crew of like, it was like adult women. They were like professional working folks who like were learning to skate on the weekends. And then, of course, there was a whole batch of younger, up-and-coming little groms.
And this is Skate Like a Girl? Like,
this was when I was doing Mafia, yeah.
Oh, Mafia,
we
okay.
went out to
and you're
film.
going and teaching people. You're giving lessons.
No, we weren't doing
lessons.
We were
just going out and filming.
Lizzie and Alicia had a thing out there. Lizzie actually rode for Penny skateboards way back in the day for a short amount of time. This is like before she was on Birdhouse.
How do you even ride for penny boards? Like
they gave her boards and they.
But like real skateboards?
No, it was more. She was like an ambassador.
That's tight, though.
Yeah, but it was like she didn't even have a board company or a board sponsor at the time. And she was smart enough to be like, yo, let's use this money to go out there, have a trip, bring Alicia, me and Johnny went, and film a little ad, but then also like meet girls out there and skate with them. So we'd have these like kind of sessions. Lisa put us in touch with some of the women out there. And that was when the first time I was like, oh my God, there's people that like look like me doing this. And then I thought, okay, I want to start learning to like really skate. So like that was a game changer for me because I never had that growing up, you know? And now the little Japanese girls, I'm like, they're dominating. It's crazy.
Going
like
off, yeah.
There's so many of them too. Like I used to know all of them, and now I'm just
That's
like.
who I seen take Lizzie out at the X Games. It was a Japanese girl. She did a fucking invert, revert, something, and it was like, boom, that's it. And I was like, damn, you gotta learn them reverts, girl.
Their culture is different out there. They're just like dedicated to the craft.
Around.
Yeah, they're like practicing.
In Brazil too, they're like skating for
same.
Satan. They're not fucking around.
I mean, when Leticia came on the scene, that was too. Like she came out
bulldozing shit.
Yeah. Well, plus for her, the difference I think being, you know, the girls that grew up here, it was like she's like, this is my ticket out of like poverty for my family too. So when she moved to LA, she wasn't like, oh, let me have fun. She was like, I gotta make money. She's like, I gotta film parts. I gotta win contests. I gotta get sponsors.
Yeah, her name became a household name pretty quick.
Exactly.
Pretty quick. Because you seen her when she was younger, and then she started getting older, and then like she didn't like take the whole, I'm gonna just be pretty and like ride that. She's like, no, I'm actually about to go for some shit.
Yeah, and I always have so much respect for Leticia because she's like, I'm gonna hit on all fronts. I'm gonna be a good skater. I'm gonna skate contests. I'm gonna train. I'm gonna take care of my body. And like if you know, I'm gonna look how I want to look, and she comes from Brazilian culture, you know.
Oh yeah,
and she's like,
I'm
gonna
good.
Embrace it. Yeah, I'm gonna embrace it. So
yeah, like, I went to Brazil once, and like everybody had ass. I was like, what the hell? The grannies, everybody was like, what the hell? There's no water out here.
I mean, there's beaches.
They're just doing it. You know what I'm
being
saying?
in a swimsuit, I think, is a big part of, you know.
It's just a part of the lifestyle out there. Yeah,
exactly.
I didn't get to go to no beaches. That's next. I'm not sure out there.
Yeah.
But I love Brazil. They got good food, and like the culture of skateboarding there is like it's real family oriented for sure.
Definitely.
Have you been down there before?
I've never been. No.
Have you been to Japan before?
I've definitely been to Japan.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah. Those are like the two most opposite cultures.
Yeah.
But then look how popular skateboarding is for young people in both. So that's the cool thing about skateboarding. It's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, shout out to Grasso. He did like love letters on
Out
both
there.
of those places.
Yeah.
And it was, he was tripped out going there to Japan and how many people were just adored with him because the skate culture out there. Man,
they do their research too.
They do their research. I can't think of her name, but she just skated in the Bob's contest. And she's from Japan.
Mommy?
I think it is Mommy. Yeah.
She rides for Blood Wizard.
Yeah, she's so fucking cool. So tight.
Dude, Mommy too is like a genius. Like she like straight up, like she went to like some special school for like super talented kids.
I feel like all schools. She's Japanese, right?
Yeah, she's
Japanese. I feel like all
Japanese.
schools in Japan are special. Like you cannot.
She's even like next level.
Yeah, for sure.
She's really good friends with Lizzie, and like she's like her English is perfect, and she just is like very like academically, I think, skilled, and then she plays the piano.
I did catch on to how perfect her English was, because it's like it's a difference between like being able to speak it, but then knowing the right mannerisms and like the little like quick little snappy jokes and shit. I'm like, damn, like that's what's up. And then I was tripping because she told me her mom and her dad skates.
Oh really? I didn't know that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think her dad, I can't remember, I don't want to mess it up, but they both skate,
that
you know?
Makes sense,
and I was like, that's rad. And I was like, that's a testament to skateboarding culture in Japan. Like,
well, you know what's crazy about, like, what I realized about the first time I went out there, like, on a skate trip, was that people in Japan, because, like, I think this is my take on it, Japan is so, like, homogenous, like, literally, like, 99% of the population is Japanese. It's not like here, where there's, like, a bunch of different ethnicities. So they're all kind of the same. So they're all looking to like find like hobbies and subcultures to be a part of, to be different, to express themselves. So like
the hip hop breakdancer shit out there is crazy.
And so when they find like a passion or a hobby,
they go hard on it.
They go hard.
Getting spray tans and shit.
Yeah, and so then it's like they go hard and they're dedicated. And then what's crazy is that like with some of the skaters I met at the time, they would go to their like 9-to-5 corporate probably jobs, like, you know, wearing a tie, whatever, dress up. And then on the weekends, they'd be at the skate park. And back then, like in America, that wasn't a thing. I feel like if you were a skater, you were definitely not wearing a suit to work, you know? No. Now I think it's a little bit more open, but I was like, that's kind of dope. Like, you shouldn't have to put yourself in a box, you know? Like,
but you were in Japan for some time?
This was just my first trip in 2012 where I really met the skaters out there.
And you went out there on Mafia TV shit?
Yeah, with Lizzie and Alicia, yeah.
So what eventually happened with Mafia TV? Just transitioned into what you guys are doing now?
It was a combination of like, I didn't know what I was doing from like a leadership standpoint. I think I was too attached to perfectionism. I didn't know how to like be a good leader and like manage my friends.
Shit to be perfect.
I had to like fall on my face, you know, because like it wasn't working. I think I was a micromanager. Just like all the things I learned about myself. And to give myself a little credit, it was a little ahead of its time.
For sure, yeah.
In terms of like reels, like that wasn't even a thing. Instagram wasn't even a thing when we started it. Nah. So like the business model was to like make videos of girl skaters and snowboarders and things like that and have brands pay us. And the brands were like, we don't have the money, or they're like, I don't know about that. Like, we don't really see the value in that. And so it was kind of a failed business model. It was like, I think in my opinion, it was a little bit too early. Because then a few times, there were situations where people poached our content. Ooh. And then I was like, all right, if I have a shop and people are just stealing from the shop, like, this maybe not the right business, you know? Like, true. I would love for the brands to pay us to, you know, I was like, hey, we're going to go to Street League. We're going to shoot the girls. Do you want, you know,
the footage?
Do you want the footage, the photos? We have.
But those offers weren't on the table, so it's kind of like, I don't want to just be shooting myself in the foot.
Yeah.
But I think there needs to be a couple more like skate camps.
Yeah, for
that are a little bit more like attainable.
Yeah.
Because some of these camps and stuff cost a lot of money to go to and stuff,
expensive,
right?
Yeah. So it just becomes like, it's like soccer, same thing. And basketball now too for kids. Like if your family doesn't have money, it's like it's going to be a disadvantage, and it shouldn't be that way, because at the end of the day, like these activities are keeping kids healthy, like physically and mentally. And so why are we going to put all these barriers to it? True. In a time where kids need the most they've ever needed to get off like a screen and like be with people in real life, like let's not put barriers on that.
That's where I first seen y'all popping off at, was at Town Park.
That was kind of like one of my favorite things that we've done. I think we did it every Sunday for a minute, because it was families coming out.
And it started growing like that, right?
It started growing, and then over time it just kept growing and growing and growing, and like then we finally like had a spot, like we had a community, because it was like people we meet, then they would volunteer with us, they worked with us, and so it was kind of like a progression, and that was really cool. And that was 7 years ago. So
yeah, started 7 years.
Minute.
Yeah, and so like through working with all of that, what's some of the biggest things you noticed, or you learned?
I would say that you definitely can't do it by yourself. Like,
True.
you got to learn. I think one of the things that was most helpful that I didn't understand when I was younger and doing like mafia and other stuff is that, like, I think working with people, like being good at getting along with other people is the key, especially if you're going to do something in community. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, are you a good person? Are you down to help others without expecting things in return? Like, that is what goes a long way, because people remember that, and then they want to be a part of what you're doing. Because, like, a lot of people have cool things that are, like, helpful, you know, to make a difference in the world. But I think whether people want to be involved or not is, like, it's, like, who you're being around it. And, like,
True.
If you're genuine and, like, truly doing it for the right reasons, it becomes a movement. If not, it's just your thing, you know? So I think just learning to work with people, and then, like, valuing everyone, even if they're different than you. Like, there's a role for everyone, you know, in the bigger picture. And I think that was something that we, you know, 7 years later, like, we have a pretty massive community. Even Jeff with Unity and there, well, even before there, it was like everything kind of started around the same time. So that was really cool, because now I'm just proud to look back of, like, what's going on in the day. Because when I moved back, there was nothing. I was like, there's, like, no community. Like, I was like, damn, like, I want to skate, but, like, I don't know where to go.
And what was your official position there? Or, like,
I started as a volunteer, and then me and Ashley co-directed the Bay Area chapter. And then during COVID, we did a bunch of restructuring, and I was overseeing marketing and partnerships for the whole organization. So a lot of the sponsors, because that's when a lot of the sponsors started coming up, like, and we had time to kind of, like, get organized.
And you think your time doing Mafia TV, the shit that the ball that you feel like you dropped there, do you feel like you're able to pick that back up for Skate Like a Girl?
Yeah,
like, you already knew what to look for and how to communicate. And stuff.
Similar work, like working with the brands, and a lot of my connections too from, like, being in the industry for, like, 15 years already, like, was helpful, because the work we're doing, like the work Skate Like a Girl is doing and community work, it's like the brands aren't doing that work, and they, like, want to be partnered with groups that are doing that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I think now there's a lot of community groups, and I love that. And then a lot of the brands, like, need that and want to work with them. But I think it's, like, closing that gap is the hardest piece. Because if you're just, like, a community leader or doing meetups or, like, running a nonprofit, like, you don't necessarily know the language that these, like, marketing folks are up to.
True.
So we actually started a mentorship program at Skate Like a Girl where we'd help some of these groups. It's called SIC, but we'd help some of these groups figure out how to talk to, like, Nike and these different companies.
True, and that's what that kind of brings us back to the what I was saying earlier. Like, the companies, like, the person who started Nike is not paying attention to what's going on in the skate program. They probably are, like, as a whole, they're like, I like what's going on there, but they're not probably super hands-on. So that, like, the communication level and skills of who needs to talk to who, for what, for why, that all varies. And then stuff can get lost in translation, and then it starts to look like, fuck Nike, because they didn't do this by my friend. But it's like, well, that's tight that you're doing mentor programs, because the friend that is going to be getting looked at more should have more of an idea of what to say. Because I think a lot of these people who get on, like, they kind of are expecting, like, okay, as soon as I get on, they're going to be making sure I can take on all the trips. They lose sight of, like, let me actually keep building my little home base. So when me and my homies is doing shit and they say, oh, you doing so good, we want to pay for y'all to take y'all little trip. Like, keep doing what you're doing. Here's the guy's card, or here's that. And that strengthens your relationship with them, your relationship with the people watching your Instagram. And
shops are, like, the most important piece of all of that, because that's the in-between right there, you know? So we always tell, like, some of these, you know, newer groups that are supporting women or trans folks, it's like, get in good, like, be friends with your shop.
For sure.
Like, find a way to, like, work with them, you know? And, like, sure, not all of them are, like, super open-minded and forward-thinking.
I was just thinking that, but I'm like, that's not the people you focus on.
Yeah, but find the ones that are and, like, build a bridge, because that's the space, you know? That's the community. So we started this event called Shop Hangs, because I understood it from kind of the outside, too, where I was, like, moving back home. I've been gone for over 10 years, and I was like, man, I don't really know anyone here. And I think the shop is a good entry point, because it's less scary to like skateboard shops can be intimidating, but still for a girl who doesn't skate, we know how to shop. Like I can come in the store and like look at stuff, but to show up at the skate park, like, and I've never skated before, that's like a huge mental barrier. True. So if we can meet folks at the shop, like,
and then go,
and then be like, okay, cool, like I know some of the folks, so like I think that's important to do like community events.
Yeah, you
in
got
this environment.
You got all these fucking dope ass ideas, but like,
it just comes from like my own like, whoa, what I want, I was like, we'd have.
That's why we got girl shirts now, our women's clothing. How do you feel about that? Girl, female, women, like, is it just like based on what you want to be, what the person wants to be called? But like,
I feel like it's different for everyone.
Everybody, yeah.
Like I dress more like I usually wear like more men's baggy unisex clothes, but it's everyone has their own expression, and I think it's less about labels and just like whatever you like.
Whatever that person wants to be called. Yeah, I was talking to Maria about that, and it kind of dawned on me more in the conversation of like, it really doesn't matter what I want to call you or what I feel comfortable. It's like what you want to be called, and like correct me, and then we can go from there. You know what I mean? So
for sure. Yeah.
So what's on the plate now? What's the move? What's the
So after 7 years, last Friday was my last day with Skate Like a Girl.
Oh no! No, I already knew that. You told me.
No, it's a great thing. Like we have younger leaders stepping into the roles, and I'm excited about that. Like we got to pass the baton. I was like, I don't want to be doing the same thing. For sure.
The way like you mentioned it to me, I kind of noticed it a little bit, but I was like, maybe we'll talk about it or whatever. But it seems like you got a real good head about it. And like I feel like that may have to do with like starting off at somewhere like an Osiris, where you just understand like this is hella fun, and then it's like, oh this is real shit, you know what I mean? So that's what's up, that you are just like moving on and like doing it.
I mean, I think for me too, like I love creating new things, so I do get a little like bored when it's like too stagnant. But that's also like something I got, because then I end up starting all these projects and I'm like, why am I so stressed? But I think I'm taking some time to chill because we've been grinding for sure. But looking at, so I have Slumber Party, which is like it's been a side project for me and Vanessa. But we have the business set up and all that. We've done like some small runs of apparel.
What is it? Oh, it's a clothing run.
Yeah, clothing. So
I'll have me send me a line sheet.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even there yet. We've done like small runs, but so that's something me and her have been talking about a lot.
That's exciting.
And then definitely like more things here in the community in the Bay. Like this is like my home, and I think spending less time
tapped in with the Oakland roots
for sure, and like the Bay is where things are happening, especially on the women's sports side. We got the Valkyries coming, the WNBA team. We got the soccer team, the Soul. But I think just being on the ground again is what I'm excited about, because my job was very computer heavy towards the end, and I just like miss people.
Skate Like a Girl.
Yeah, I was like,
because you've learned how to fucking take that leadership role. Yeah. So you fall into it. So the people that's coming in now, they're gonna have to fill your shoes. Yep. And did you give them like some pointers and
exactly.
all of that?
So what's cool is that Seema has been with Skate Like a Girl for over 10 years, and I've been her boss for the past 2 years. And it was like just a natural, like, dude, you're up, like you're next. She's great. She's in LA now, but she was just up here for when Deluxe moved for that opening. But it's cool, like that we're not just
we gonna get to that.
Yeah. But it's exciting to like pass it off, and like I don't want to become like the crusty old person, so I was the oldest person at Skate Like a Girl, and I turned 40 this year. Everyone's younger, like the rest of our salary staff is like 20s, 30s, so I was like,
OG in the building. I know, but that's tight though. That's tight. I just think that's tight. Remove skate culture, whatever. Just tight as a human being to know, like, okay, I've done what I wanted to do, what I can do. I feel good about it, and
pass the baton. Like we gotta
sometimes
pass
people
it on,
get sour.
Yeah, and I don't want to
run the job like another 3 years, being like, oh, that's how, blah, blah. And then they're like, you know what? Fuck this place. And it's like, that is not. That is
or 10 years later, I'm like, this is how I, it's like.
Just standing on business hella tough, and it's not even about fun. It's not about skating and shit at that point. It's just about like.
Plus, skateboarding is always driven by youth anyway, so it's like, if I'm getting old and crusty, like I need to hand it over to the youth and learn from them. Like I want to learn from them,
True. But the fact that you want to still stay in it and start another entity, because when like some people talk about they want to start a brand or a clothing brand, and I'm thinking like, damn, how are you going to connect with the people? Versus you on the other hand, that's been your job, is connecting with people through the DJ shit, through working with different companies, Skate Like a Girl. It just seems like you're a personal person in general. So I feel like y'all Slumber Party is gonna have like that aspect to it. It's gonna be like a cool shirt, but I'm sure you guys are gonna be doing some events, and just some sort of activation, interaction with the brand or the company that's gonna be like, I support that.
That's what it's about. Like, we never were like, oh, we want to make clothes to make clothes. It was like, Vanessa's the same. She's always been someone who like engages with folks.
Mentor.
And, like,
she's always seemed like a mentor.
Yeah, exactly. She's mentored some of the younger girls coming up. So we're like, we're gonna do cool things in the community, and then selling shirts or sweatshirts or sweatpants will just be like the way that we do it.
Yeah, for sure. So, that's like the means of production. This guy came in the other day. He interviewed me. He works at Cal, and he was talking about like how running a business through COVID and stuff. But really, he wanted to know like what's the correlation of doing events and running a business. And I was like, I'm so glad you asked me that, because I'm right now in the midst of putting together an event. I understand I got to have at least something a month. Yeah. Even if it's not a blowout, just something that just lets people know, like, yo, come kick it. You don't got to spend $1. But the art shows is what really does it. And I'm starting to like break down what an art show even is in my head more and more. It's like, it's art on the wall, people eating cheese and wine. That's like the grandiose shit. But then when you start to break it down to the street level, it's somebody who spent days working on something, got asked to put something on the wall to tell their friends, sharing it with people and being like, look at this, my shit's on the wall. Oh, somebody bought it. Oh, you want me to make something for you later? Yeah. It's all of that. And like when you put in a skate event, when you put a art show around a company or something like that, like I was thinking like it'd be a dope idea if Bart had an art show. And like all the shit that people, all the photos on Bart, people taking themselves, all the professional photos, all the stories. And it started because somebody asked me, like, she was like, where's the Bart go? Like when it goes, and somebody told her that it goes under the water. And they were like hella freaked out. And I was like, that is something to freak out on. But then I thought about it, I'm like, how the fuck did they build that though? Yeah. And then you start thinking like, damn, imagine just unearthing all of that. Yeah. Who thought of that? Why they did it? And now it leads to me being able to get across the bridge in 30 minutes to go meet up with some shorty or go skate. You know what I mean? Like the thought process that went in that. And then imagine like getting the floor plans, getting the photos of the dude who did it. You know what I mean? Like the first day and like fights, just all types of shit that happens on Bart, you know, like the unruly, smoking crack, just all of that shit, you know what I mean? Like all of it is pretty rad, and I think you could put that shit out in the art show. So that'd be cool. I feel like throwing events and having the company and all of that is like super important to each other.
At the end of the day, it's just getting people together, and like we need that more than ever because everyone's at home scrolling their lives away, you know. For
sure, and I think that's what we talking about with going to the schools and linking up the kids. Being there with the kids, yeah, because they are so quick to get on the phone, you know, which I respect it. Shit, you got a phone, TikTok's popping, you're looking at stuff, but to pop up on them at school and be like, hey, put the phone down for 2 seconds and check this out. Or film this and then keep this in your brain to go exercise. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not super team sports. Like, there's skate teams and there's brands, but like you can do this shit by yourself.
And here's the thing with kids is like, sure, they'll scroll just like all of us, but when you're young and you meet someone, an adult in real life that you can relate to, that will stay with you forever. Like one of the first programs we did, me and Ashley, we were at Abia, it's a charter school, and we were with the kids for a week straight. And we see some of the kids out in the skate parks, and they still remember us. And I was like, oh my God, you're like 3 feet taller, you know?
Yeah, I trip on that too. I'm like...
Because they're like 13, you know? And so we forget as adults, like, you know, that when you're that age, everything's super impressionable. Yeah.
I'm always hella chill with the little homies that come in. Us just showing up,
like, is potentially, they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, and it's always like, they're going to remember it exactly how you did it.
Exactly,
so I always feel like it's like, for me, I'm like, okay... Sometimes, like if I'm smoking a cig and I'm like, all right, whatever. But if I'm like, if it's super obvious that like I'm the grown up person smoking a cig around all these younger homies, I'm like, all right, let me ditch that. You know what I mean? Just because that's gonna be them. Like, you know, I remember when I was younger, the first people I seen smoking, I was like, that looks hella cool, blood. And I'm like, damn, I don't want to be that. But it's just life, you know. It's cool to be cognizant of it. Any advice for like a woman in skateboarding coming up?
I mean, I think nowadays the girls are pretty confident. I see the little girls at the park and I'm like, I wish I had that confidence, but no.
I'm waiting for the day. Like, I want to see Nicole, Nora, Lizzie, Mommy, Laura mixed up with some dudes on the same like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to see the mixed nuts contest start going down,
That
because it's like, yeah, I'm asking for
vibe.
advice for a woman, but it's like, it's almost like it's they're in there just as much as the boys now, so
Yeah.
it's like it'll be transferable, really.
I will say, I think in terms of advice, I would say that even with all the confidence in the world and all these like pathways that were carved out for you, it's still important to have community. So like reach out to other people.
Word.
You know, like look to your peers. It doesn't have to be someone that like is above you, super famous and successful. It's just like make a connection, like get a crew, you know? I think that's the gap sometimes now. It's
You guys doing slumber party is going to be a great idea, because I think that's going to show people.
Yeah,
more
we're all
and more.
about the crew, you know? It's like
Yeah.
Samaria is part of our friend crew, Norma, the photographer. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, I saw Nicole at Exposure, the San Diego event last weekend, and we were both just talking about, you know, what we're up to, and she was like, yeah, isn't the end goal always to just get paid to do things with your friends?
With your crew? Yeah.
With your friends. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, that's the dream, you know? So
even actors,
Yeah.
everybody, basketball players, yeah, you want to be able to make some money with your friends.
Yeah, and just like sustain, like,
Yeah.
you know, because if you're super rich and successful but you're alone, like, what's the point of any of that, you know? That's like
Trash.
That's like money only gets you so far, but having people support you and love you, like that's the key right there to life.
I think that's a good way to end it. For real. So we can keep going. I got Scott in here. We got to keep it rocking.
Hell yeah.
I really appreciate you coming
Yeah,
through.
thank
I've
you for having me.
learned everything that I was looking, and I was like, you just always, I was seeing it. The name is cool. Kim Woozy is just, I was like, who the fuck is Kim Woozy? Skate like a girl. And I'm like, all right. And but it's cool to actually sit down and like.
Yeah, and
put-
thank you
put a
for
face
doing
to it.
all that you're doing in the
For
community.
sure, for
Like
sure.
we need more shops, we need more folks like making things happen, keeping it real, and like being open to like new things, you know?
Yeah.
Like skateboarding's evolving all the time, so being attached to how things are done, like that's only gonna get you so far. Being down for new things is like, that's the way to go.
The new frontier things. Yeah, man. Be looking for that slumber party gear, because we going to have it. All right. Mondays and Tuesdays at the shop. Big Hongry. See you later.
Thank you all.